Rabindranath Tagore, born May 7, 1861, Kolkata. Achievements: Nobel Prize in Literature 1913 for the poetry collection Gitanjali, founding of Vishwabharati. Rabindranath Tagore was a world-famous poet, literator and philosopher. He is the only Indian literator to have received the Nobel Prize. He was also the first Asian to receive the Nobel Prize and the first non-European to receive the Nobel in Literature. He is the only poet in the world whose compositions are the national anthems of two countries, the national anthem of India, Jana Gana Mana, and the national anthem of Bangladesh, Amar Sona Bangla. Rabindranath Tagore, also known as Gurudev, gave a new direction to Bengali literature and music. He also used new types of verse and prose and colloquial language in Bengali literature. This freed Bengali literature from the influence of classical Sanskrit. Rabindranath Tagore played an influential role in bringing the goodness of Indian civilization to the West and its goodness here. His talent can be gauged from the fact that he wrote his first poem when he was only 8 years old. At the age of 16, his poems were also published under the name Bhanusimha. He was a staunch nationalist and condemned the British Raj and demanded the independence of the country. He renounced the knighthood given by the British after the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Early life: Rabindranath Tagore was born on 7 May 1861 in Jorasanko Thakabari, Kolkata. His father was Devendranath Tagore and mother was Sharda Devi. He was the youngest of the 13 surviving children of his parents. His mother died when he was young, and since his father was often on the go, he was brought up by servants. The Tagore family was at the forefront of the Bengal Renaissance. There were publications of magazines, theatre, performances of Bengali and Western music were frequent. Thus the atmosphere of his home was no less than that of a school. His eldest brother Dwijendranath was a philosopher and poet. His second brother, Satyendranath Tagore, was the first Indian to join the Indian civil service. Another of his brothers, Jyotindranath, was a musician and playwright. His sister Swarnakumari Devi was a poetess and novelist. He did not like the traditional education system, so he did not like to sit in the class and study. He often visited the family manor with his family members. His brother Haimendranath used to teach him. The study also included swimming, exercise, judo and wrestling. Apart from this, he also learned drawing, anatomy, history, geography, literature, mathematics, Sanskrit and English. You will be surprised to know that he disliked formal education so much that he went to Presidency College in Kolkata for only one day. After his Upanena ceremony, Rabindranath went on a tour of India with his father for several months. He also visited the family's fiefdoms, Shantiniketan and Amritsar, before reaching Dalhousie, a tourist destination in the Himalayas. In Dalhousie, he studied history, astronomy, modern science, Sanskrit, biography and discussed Kalidasa's poems. After this, Rabindranath returned to Jorasanko and by the year 1877 had composed some of his important works. His father Debendranath wanted to make him a barrister. So he sent Rabindranath to England in the year 1878. He enrolled in the University College London to study law. But after some time he dropped out and self-studied the works of Shakespeare and some other literatures. He returned to Bengal in 1880 without a law degree. He was married to Mrinalini Devi in the year 1883. Career. After his return from England and his marriage, until 1901, Rabindranath spent most of his time in his family's fiefdom in Selda, now in Bangladesh. In the year 1898, His children and wife also started living with him here. He traveled far and wide in his fiefdom and observed the life of the rural and poor people very closely. From 1891 to 1895, he wrote several short stories set in rural Bengal. In the year 1901, Rabindranath moved to Shantiniketan. He wanted to establish an ashram here. Here he built a school, library and place of worship. He planted many trees here and also made a beautiful garden. It was here that his wife and 2 children also died. His father also passed away in 1905. By this time, he was also earning a monthly income from his inherited wealth. Some income also started coming from the royalties of his literature. Rabindranath Tagore received the Nobel Prize for Literature on 14 November 1913. The Swedish Academy, the Nobel Prize awarding body, had decided to award him on the basis of translation of some of his works and Gitanjali. The British government granted him a knighthood in the year 1915, which Rabindranath left after the 1919 Jallianwala Bagh massacre. In 1921, he, along with agricultural economist Leonard Amherst, founded the Institute of Rural Reconstruction near his ashram. Later its name was changed to Sriniketan. Tagore remained very active socially in the last decade of his life. During this time he wrote about 15 prose and poetry koshas. He touched many aspects of human life through the literature written during this period. During this time he also wrote articles related to science. Last time, he spent the last 4 years of his life in pain and illness. At the end of the year 1937, he became unconscious and remained in this state for a long time. About 3 years later, the same thing happened again. During this, whenever he was fine, he would write poems. The poems written during this period are one of his best poems. After a long illness, on the 7th of August 1941, he said goodbye to this world. Trips. From 1878 to 1932, he traveled to 30 countries. The main purpose of his travels was to take his literary works to those who did not understand the Bengali language. The famous English poet William Butler Yeats wrote the foreword to the English translation of Gitanjali. His last foreign trip was to Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, in 1932. Literature. Most people know him only as a poet, but in reality it was not so. Along with poems, he also wrote novels, articles, short stories, travelogues, dramas and thousands of songs. Music and art. Along with a great poet and literator, Guru Rabindranath Tagore was also an outstanding musician and painter. He wrote about 2,230 songs. These songs are called Rabindra Sangeet. It is an integral part of Bengali culture. The national anthems of India and Bangladesh, which were written by Rabindranath Tagore, are also part of this Rabindra Sangeet. At the age of about 60, Rabindranath Tagore started showing interest in drawing and painting. He incorporated the styles of different countries in his art. Political views. His political views were very complex. He criticized European colonialism and supported Indian nationalism. Along with this, he criticized the Swadeshi movement and said that we should focus on the intellectual development of the common people. In this way we can pave the way for independence. He wrote many songs in support of the Indian independence movement. After the Jallianwala Bagh Narasimha of 1919, he renounced the knighthood given by the British. He played an important role in resolving the differences between Gandhi and Ambedkar on the issue of separate electorates for untouchables.